So, do you know how you get a $56 million verdict? Do you want to know how to get a $56 million verdict? That one too. Been there. Anybody? You want to know? You just say no to $20 million offer. Right? And the point of what I'm trying to make is these huge verdicts you hear, 99 9/10% of them are great cases to begin with. You know, what we bring to the jury is, yeah, there's a lot of skills we got to learn. There's a lot of work we have to put into it. There's 1,000 things we have to do. But at the end of the day, it's a $20 million case to begin with, right? The lesson from that, perhaps, is quit settling your good cases. I think when you have a good liability case with good injuries in it, it's hard to lose it. You know, it really is. But what we do, at least what I did when we were struggling, is you need the money, right? And you give yourself 1,000 reasons to settle it, and you do. And you do it again, and you do it again, and you wonder why you're not up here. You know, the reason you're not up here is you're settling your good cases. You're not trying them. And I believe what Stephen Hawking says about astrophysicists. He said anybody who went to Cambridge could be an astrophysicist, could be a great astrophysicist. They have the ability to do it. You just have to do the work. You know, I mean, I have an iron ass. That's why I have the verdicts I have, is I have an iron ass. I can sit in that chair and study longer than you can. You know, and I do it every morning, 4 o'clock, I'm up. Come hell or high water, I read something that makes me a better lawyer for 30 minutes every day. You know how many books you read in 30 minutes a day? It's astonishing. You know, how many, well, we don't need to go into that. And that's the biggest takeaway I have for you, is that these are very discrete, fine-tuned skills, but they're teachable, they're learnable. There's not any one of us here who can't master them. When I went to law school, I met 2 people. That's how socially retarded I was. 2 people. I was afraid of people. I had no social skills. I hid from them. You know, I am the last person you would think would ever have the verdicts that I have. And the reason I do is I've studied very specific skills that I then take to the courtroom. This hand gesture you see right here took me 6 months to get it so you didn't see it. You know, it's that fine-tuning that I bring to the table. Where'd it go? Ah.
Down is up.
That was the girls dancing saying, just say no. Remember Nancy Reagan's just say no? That was the purpose of that. So how many people here would like to be more confident? And the rest of you would rather be not confident, I take it. Okay, pay attention to this, because in 10 minutes you will be more confident. I absolutely guarantee it. When you're not confident, why is that? It's because you're afraid, right? Would everybody agree with that? Fear starting to take over? You know, almost every trial I do, there's some white shoe law firm, some guy who went to Harvard or Yale up there, and he's standing there and he's shaking as he gives the opening, you know? And he was reading it. Or he'll be like this when he's talking to the jury, you know? And the reason for that is because they're not allowed to be afraid. They're not allowed to embrace that fear. The first time one of my associates tells me he's not afraid, he's in trouble. You know, because genetically we are required to be afraid in that courtroom. When, in a state of nature, when we evolved, the chief controlled all the resources, even whether you lived or died. He determined that. If you were banished, death was certain. The tribe down the street killed you, the animals ate you, you froze to death, or you starved to death. But death was certain. And that's how we evolved. In our brains, we are genetically terrified of being rejected by the tribe. And so what profession did we choose? We stand in front of the high priest. We got 12 family representatives, which is the size of a tribe when we were in a state of nature. And one of us is guaranteed to be rejected, right? Is it any wonder we suffer from PTSD? Because our brain really does interpret that as life-threatening. Because in a state of nature, it was life-threatening. But what is fear? It's something in the future. It's not now. I'm safe now, right? You might reject me in a minute or two. You know, God knows what I'm going to say next. But right now, I'm safe. It's a future event. And what else about it? It's a fast heartbeat. Anybody ever been afraid without a fast heartbeat? Anybody? It's impossible. So I quit telling myself to stop being afraid and started working on how do I lower my heart rate. If I can lower my heart rate and you can't, and the battle starts, I get to win. So let's go back to how we do it. First thing you do is, what do I see? I see a black hat. He's got a blue ribbon around his neck with a blue and white name tag on it. He's got a white shirt on. I'm very specific about what do I see. Next question is, what do I feel? Well, there's more pressure on my left foot than my right foot. My right knee is a little hurt. They want to replace it, but the insurance company doesn't want to pay for it, so I'm in the middle of that battle. What do I feel physically? What do I feel emotionally? I'm a little afraid still. I haven't got comfortable with you yet. I don't feel connected yet. It's starting to come, so I'm a little excited because I know it'll get there. But there's still a little nervousness to it. What do I physically feel? What do I emotionally feel? If it's fear, I have to acknowledge it because it'll chase me around that courtroom the rest of the day if I don't. And I have to embrace it. You know, I get a lot of energy from that fear. And then you breathe. But you breathe very specifically. You do it in a 4-box. It's called combat breathing. The military developed it. See, it's really hard to shoot Osama bin Laden after you've just crashed your helicopter and others are shooting at you. It's hard to aim that rifle, you know. They've had to, in order to be efficient in a battlefield, they had to teach people to lower their heart rate. So you do it in the 4-box. So let's do that together. Breathe in at a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Release on a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. And you do that until you feel that fear go away. Now, don't start practicing this in your next trial. Start practicing this today and do it every day so that when I walk in that courtroom and I need to settle that heart rate down, it takes about 30 to 60 seconds. I can drop that heart rate because I practice it every single day. To me, that's probably the most important thing about being a trial lawyer, is being able to control myself. Being able to, and let me explain why that's so important. Your heart rate gets past 120, you start getting really stupid. At 140, you are mentally challenged, every single one of us. At 170, we can no longer control our bodily functions. That's how critical that heart rate is. You know, I'm the mayor of a city, and the police shootings we have, if we could just teach them to meditate and test their heart rate after each event, we wouldn't have very many at all. Because it's always the officer who just left a stressful stop. And it's the next stop where the shooting will occur. And it all has to do with heart rate and getting them to lower that heart rate. But it's really hard to get police to do that because there's this macho thing about meditation doesn't really gel with it, which I don't quite understand. But you as lawyers, you have to be in control of yourself first. And then, when I feel it go back, I'm back. I say that to myself. I'm back. And I'm up, you know, because I know in order to persuade that court or that jury, I have to make it fun for you. I have to make it, you gotta wanna listen to me, right? I have to change my persona into, I can no longer be the afraid one. I'm back, and I'm dancing, and I'm performing. And if that doesn't work, the nice thing about being really old like I am is you got all kinds of things wrong with you. And I got heart disease, so they give me beta blockers. And you know, I do the meditation thing because I think I like to, because the beta blocker will block the adrenaline. If you have that, if you really are struggling with it every time you go into the courtroom, recognize it's perfectly natural. I'd be worried about you if you weren't. But there's solutions. Take a beta blocker. You know, 50 milligrams, Toprol. Take it half hour before you go in. It blocks the adrenaline. I'm getting to you, Joe. Don't worry.
Well, I'm enjoying this. I'm just breathing in 4, holding it 4, breathing out 4.
A book everybody should read is Scarcity. And for a lot of reasons. It's based on the concept that we have a bandwidth. And when we wake up in the morning, if we've slept well, we're able to perform really well. Whatever that is, that's where the peak is going to be. It's going to be in the early hours of the day. Every decision we make is like lifting a dumbbell. It gets tireder and tireder and tireder, and that's what happens with our brains. You want to understand that concept really well. Like when I'm in trial, Brittany orders all my food, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Every decision she can take away from me, she takes away from me. I never drive, because look at all the decisions you make while driving to court. Right? We do everything we can to preserve the trial lawyer's bandwidth for the one thing they're there for that day, which is the trial. Judges are that way. If you got a difficult decision for the judge, make sure he does it in the morning. Because if you do it in the afternoon, the answer is no. You know, no is the default, because you can't get in trouble if you say no. You're not taking any chances if you say no. That will always be the default. Make sure you choreograph every decision that occurs in that courtroom, if you can. Put a lot of energy into that. The difficult ones you want in the morning. If you know he's just wrong, he's just made a bad call, don't tell him about it in the afternoon. You know, tell them the next morning. Raise it again in the morning. The timing of these things is critically essential. Recognizing bandwidth in people and how limited it really is critically important for the jury. You know, and I'll talk about that. Kahneman wrote, he got the Nobel Prize in economics. He's a psychologist for behavioral economics. Anything he wrote, you should read. But thinking fast and slow is particularly important. We think we put a lot of thought into the decisions we make. We think we're pretty bright people, and we use our brains in everything that goes on. We're not. Rarely. Rarely do we get into our cortex. We've taken life experiences and made everything a knee-jerk reaction. You know, that's why, I mean, a year into COVID, people can still say, don't wear masks. I mean, how is that possible? No, the vaccine will kill you. I mean, it's a Bill Gates plot. How do people believe stuff like that? They believe them because of scarcity. You know, we have limited bandwidth, and our default is to conserve it. And if we can just make a knee-jerk decision, we do. That's true with us, it's true with the jury, it's true with the court. We found that, you know, what we tend to do in law and motion and in appeals is we take all of the issues and we overload the court with them, right? We put them all in there. Everyone, we don't want to leave one out. Well, you know, he even hung up on me on the phone 6 months ago. Let's put that in there. You know, don't we do that? What the science tells us is that if you want to win the motion, try to keep it at one issue. Make it simple. What do you call it? Binary, right?
Binary, yep. Like
binary decision. All that stuff you're adding to it as icing on the cake is just weighing down your argument and making it more likely you'll lose. Take that one salient point and run with it. If you can keep the focus on the one major issue that you win with, that's what you should be doing. Do not assume that that judge is not just like that jury. They have limited bandwidth. We interviewed him for a blog I had on trial by science. And, you know, you get in these conversations with these guys, at least I do, and I'm just enthralled, you know. I could talk to them for hours, you know. I'm what do you call it, I forget it, something about horseradish, but, you know, I'm a worm in horseradish, you know. I'm in heaven. It's just, so I can go on and on. So towards the end of the conversation, I go, yeah, but what can you tell us that lawyers should know? You know, I forgot why I was talking to him. And he said, you know, all this stuff is really interesting and really valid. It's robust science and all these cognitive science persuasion skills. But at the end of the day, the simplest case is going to win. It just comes down to that. The simplest case is going to win. Complexity is the friend of the defense. It is not your friend. And every time he sucks you into something, or she sucks you into something that is really not all that relevant, and you go after it anyway, because you know you can, you know you could win this, I know he's wrong, I'm going to prove it, and I'm going to take 3 days to do it, and it has nothing to do with the case. I mean, I catch myself in those messes all the time. All I'm doing is letting them win, because I'm letting complexity take over the case. You spend as much time as it takes to simplify that case. I even now have there's a program called Jasper that, you know, I have a subscription for. And it'll take anything I write, and one of the features it has, and it'll rewrite it for a 5th grader, so a 5th grader can understand it. I do that with our motions for the court, because there's a thing called cognitive ease. Hold on. I guess I took that one out. It's called cognitive ease. Your goal should not be to have anyone know how smart you are. or what big words you know, or how conversant you are in scientific principles. Like even the word cognitive science, not a good idea. Your assumption is everybody knows what that is. They don't. You write it for a fifth grader, even if you're writing for the court. Because the more easy you make it, the more likely they are going to decide in your favor. You dumb it down, I guess is what I'm saying. But you're dumbing it down for the purpose of making it easy. Just make it the easiest decision for them to make. Now, all of this is all well and good, but how many of you are like me? That judge pisses me off. I'm pissed off. And I'm going to war, right? And I'm going to say shit I never should have said. I'm going to be angry in front of the jury, and I know that's death for me to be the one spewing the anger around. How do you keep that from happening? I wish I had learned this 30 years ago. Go be a soccer referee. AYSO, yeah, soccer, kids soccer. Go be a soccer referee. Why? Because those parents are going to be as ugly as you could imagine. They're going to say things to you that you never dreamed anybody would say to you. They're going to scream at you in public, right? Isn't that what happens? Anybody been a referee or been at one of those games? I was one of those parents once. I can remember it as vividly. Something about it being your kids, and reason goes out the window. And the reason you want to do something like that is you want to practice. You want to be able to take this crap in and not let it raise your heart rate, not let it change your performance. It takes practice to do that. That's one way to do it. There's another way that I've been working on lately. Say I come home late, we're supposed to go someplace, and my wife, she doesn't actually do this, but let's assume she does. She goes, "You're late. You're always late." Now, I have a choice. The fight can be on, I can engage in the battle, or I can get, and I want to because I'm already in my amygdala now. The amygdala of my brain is at work. I want to get in the fight. How do I stop? I just say to myself, that's interesting. The word interesting will take you to your cortex. When you're in your cortex, you're not going to react through some other portion of your brain. Again, it takes training. When you're driving your car and somebody flips you off or whatever, train yourself. Interesting. It gives you the ability to decide how to proceed. What we know for certain is that jurors are going to turn away if you're the one that's angry. They turn away from you. And the reason for that is their mirror cells reflect it. I don't know about you, but I don't like to be angry, especially if it's your stuff and not my stuff, right? If you're the one pushing out those anger signals, they will turn to the other side. It'll happen time after time after time. And whoever told us that making the jury cry is a good idea? That making the jury cry will somehow raise the damages? Whoever told us that? Because the science says something certainly different than that. People don't like to be sad. They don't like to cry, right? And yeah, they'll go with you, they'll mirror your tears, but they'll turn to where they don't have to feel bad. Now, do I want those emotions in the trial? I do, but not for me. Never for me. That's why you work with the witnesses, that when you want, everything is choreographed that we do. When we want those emotions to rise, we call the witness that we know will produce them. And it's usually in the middle of the trial. I don't want it at the beginning, and I don't want it at the end. And the other thing I find that is effective, before I go into that, Sapolsky also tells us, he says, why do you want empathetic jurors? Because I asked him, he's a primate neurobiologist out of Stanford. He's written all kinds of books on stress. And I was interviewing him, and I asked him, what about lawyers? What could we use? He goes, this thing about empathetic jurors, you know, the science behind that is empathetic people, they emote, they feel bad, they wish you weren't a quadriplegic, but they're not going to do anything to help you. You know, they tend not to act. They're the ones that forget to call 911. What I prefer is the detached juror, the one that's going to be able to add up the money, that'll be able to take the instructions where the instructions say each item you must put in your award and then add it up, you know, and then multiply it by the number of years they're going to still live. That's the juror I want. I want the detached one. And I guess what I'm proposing to you is make room for the possibility that the jurors you're afraid of, maybe you shouldn't be. All they're really looking for is that you talk in their language. I don't try to break their hearts. These are the rules. They broke the rules. These are what the rules say you have to pay. 1, 2, 3, very simple. Bang. I get much bigger awards. I like conservative jurors because I keep the case framed around rules and following the instructions. They're weighted towards us. They really are. Those jurors are also the ones, though, that become incredibly suspicious of you when you start pulling at their heartstrings. I rarely do it anymore. I pretty much keep it as logical as possible. We're almost where I switch it over, but I want to give you some basic skills. How many people have difficulty getting jurors to talk? Anybody? Well, I always have that trouble initially. Eventually, how do you get them to talk? How do you get a witness to keep talking? I think I want you to practice this one. Turn to the person that you know the least, right? I want you to ask them, I don't know, what do you think of the conference? Something short, so the answer's short. When they stop talking, just do this. Can you see what I'm doing? Just raise your eyebrows. Try it. I mean, if you don't try it here, you're not going to practice it elsewhere. You ready? Go. Come on.
It's fun.
Okay, come back. That one technique will make you more money than you can imagine. Offer me $100,000.
Would you like $100,000?
You know, when I'm deposing experts, you know, or I have them on the stand, and then, you know, I want more out of them, I just go. Now, a lot of them know what I'm doing, and they try to make fun of me. And I just, you know, I can bear the laughter. And you want to remember that too. You cannot be great at this business unless you can bear the laughter. You will do things that people will laugh at. People